today we're going to explore the concept of waking up versus growing up. And this is the central idea to Ken Wilber's idea of integral theory. And you can read more about this in his book, Integral Meditation. It's very, very fascinating. And here we are going to explore this a little bit more. There are two different paths, and if you are familiar with spirituality, you are usually familiar with the path of waking up, which means that you realize the oneness of everything. You see through the illusion of the separated self. And humanity has known about this for quite a long time. I think he's saying in the book 30,000 to 50,000 years that humanity had some kind of technique or some kind of way to transcend this ego identification. And so there's a lot of there are a lot of techniques out there, a very large knowledge about how to wake up, how to disidentify with the part and become the whole. And this is very, very, our humanity has developed many different schools, and you can find many different teachers out there that will teach you how to wake up, how to have an enlightenment experience, how to realize your true self. And there can be a lot be said about this. It's a very, very deep topic, but we have been aware of this for a long time. And if you want to just wake up, there is a pretty sure way you can do this. It requires usually a lot of effort and a lot of time is involved, but it's possible. And we have known about it. And now the new thing about this integral theory is the path of waking up, of growing up, sorry. And what does growing up mean? It means that when we have an idea about the world, that this idea evolves through our knowledge, our conscious knowledge, and then it becomes a solid reality for us. And we do that in part through science. So growing up has also meant that we know about the larger universe around us, that we know about the sameness of every human being, of how other beings or animals perceive the world, for example. And this has really grown our ability to see the world through the eyes of others, to feel empathy. And so these are all things that you could say are part of the path of growing up. And this is a development that humanity is going through, as well as the individual. So when you are growing up from childhood to adulthood, you are going through some degree of growing up, or you're growing up from the very fundamental basic level where you're only concerned with food and very basic needs of survival to like higher needs of realizing yourself, of expressing yourself, of having different emotions. And so this is something you go through individually, but also you are most likely, if you are doing this unconsciously, and that's what most people are doing, you are only growing up so far. And what determines how far you're going to grow up is determined by the society that you are living in. And so really the state of humanity as a large is predicting how much you are going to grow up if you're not consciously trying to evolve and make this process something that you are investing consciously in. And this is really where this becomes very, very powerful. And this knowledge about it will with this knowledge, you will be able to really facilitate your personal development beyond what you would develop if you are just going through this unconsciously, and develop to the level that your society that you're living in is at. And what does growing up really mean, or how we can understand it, is if we look at the maps and the concepts that we explain the world to us, we can see that this has changed dramatically over the course of even recent human understanding. And the last couple hundred years, it has changed dramatically. What we have learned about the universe, for example, has changed dramatically, and it has influenced our understanding of the world. And so there you can already see how these maps that we explain the world to us with will constantly change. And what we have to do to make this process, or to take this process and make it and take the responsibility for this development, is to see these maps and concepts and filters that we use on a daily basis, to see them as an object. And what does this mean? It means that usually we are identified with some part of it. We see that, or we think that we are the one who sees the world like this. We may be thinking, okay, I'm someone who believes in science. I am a scientist. This way of seeing the world is who I am. I like to see the world in this way or in that way. And so part of this map and part of this filter to see the world becomes our ego. It is the subject that we feel we are. We feel that we are this entity who is perceiving the world in a certain way. And what we have to do is we have to combine the techniques of waking up with the knowledge about growing up. And we do that when we use, for example, mindfulness meditation, where we focus on something in our current state of awareness in the present moment. And we use this ability to hold something in our consciousness, and we direct it towards these filters and towards these maps. And so we ask the question in meditation, what am I identified with? What part of how I see the world feels like a subject to me? What does feel like I am that? And so we can use this approach to hold something in awareness, in consciousness, that we formerly thought was our ego. And by that process, we turn it into an object, because then we can clearly see that it is only something, some idea arising in consciousness. I hope this made some sense, because it's not really an easy concept to grasp. But once you put some thought into it, it really becomes clear. And where the strength of this approach, of this understanding that there are kind of two separate paths, where it really has where it has value, is that you are not only focused on making this distinction disappear between me here on the one side and the world on the other side, but to also see that this world out there is actually a map, is still a concept that is growing, that is evolving, and that is changing, and that what you are waking up to was different 10,000 years ago and from today. And so what you are waking up to today will be much different than what somebody woke up to 10,000 years ago. And this oneness and this wholeness, you could say, will still be different today than it was in the past. And in one sense, it is more valuable today and also then in the future, because it will ever be greater and the understanding will ever be more inclusive. And to see that you can develop this understanding and that it is also changing as the path of growing up, will really open oneself up to higher states of understanding of more accurate states of understanding reality. And to wrap this up, what is important to remember is that how we perceive the world and what we see as the world is not a subject. We are not we can disidentify with these filters that we use to see the world and see them as an object. And we do that through combining waking up or techniques of waking up, for example, mindfulness, and focus them on these ideas, on these maps. And we can therefore transcend them, include them, and develop maps that are more accurate and more inclusive. And what that will look like might be different for every person, but in a general direction, this development goes towards more wholeness. And to understand these different states of growing up, it's really important to read the work of integral theory on the one hand, and also spiral dynamics. Spiral dynamics was developed a little bit earlier, where by seeing how humanity has developed through these different stages that are defined in this theory, you can make predictions where your own development will go and where humanity will develop towards. So these are two resources that you can look at if you want to learn more about this. Really, at once this book, Spiral Dynamics by Don Beck, I think is his name, and Integral Meditation by Ken Wilber, because the book Spiral Dynamics itself is only focused on the path of growing up and will not really go into how to wake up. But the book of Ken Wilber, he combines the both theories, and so you get a very good overview. I hope this gave you an understanding of the concepts of growing up versus waking up, and it helps you on your own personal development journey. And with that being said, thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.